former State Department official David Tafuri. David, thanks for being here tonight. How important is this trip?
This is really important for Ukraine and for the United States. The president is going to Belgium, first of all, to meet with all of the NATO leaders and EU leaders. That meeting will be a strategy meeting and a meeting in order to ensure that they're still unified and that they agree on the next steps to take against Russia. And then he's just coming to one country, and that country is Poland. The reason he's coming to Poland, some of the reasons are obvious. For instance, he wants to show support for President Duda and Poland for receiving so many refugees from Ukraine. They've already received over 2 million refugees, and they basically have an open-door policy to Ukraine. Some of the reasons are also less obvious. For instance, Poland is one of the main supply routes for NATO, and Poland is how NATO is sending in shipments of weapons and supplies to Ukraine, and Biden and President Duda want to make sure that they keep those supply routes open. There's also the possibility that President Biden will try to see President Zelensky. Jen Psaki didn't close the door on that, but she basically said that President Biden is probably not going to go into Ukraine, although I would remind viewers that when presidents go into war zones, they don't tell anyone publicly. So in Iraq, for instance, U.S. presidents have visited Iraq without giving anyone any warning. So it's possible he'd go to Ukraine, but I doubt he will because of the security concerns. It's possible President Zelensky could come here to Poland in order to meet with President Biden, but that might also have some difficulties for President Zelensky. In any event, this is an important visit for the neighbor to Ukraine, which is so significant for supporting refugees and for resupplying Ukraine.
And so, David, let's talk the consideration of going into a war zone. Obviously, presidents don't want to announce their itinerary, but how significant would it be? How important is it that he does meet with Zelensky as the leader of the free world to make a presence known, or does that overshadow what he would accomplish in Poland and in Belgium?
Well, I think the symbolism and the imagery would be fantastic for the United States and for President Zelensky, especially in order to show his people that the U.S. still cares and is still standing side by side with President Zelensky and with the Ukrainians who are fighting so hard and putting up such a significant resistance to Russia. But keep in mind that President Zelensky and President Biden are in close touch. They're frequently having phone calls and video calls. So the question is, do the benefits outweigh the downside and the risks involved of them trying to meet either in Poland or in Ukraine?
And I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if you had to guess at what the headline, the real takeaway, the tangible perhaps, that comes out of this, is it a NATO announcement of the MiG fighters? Is it the possible no-fly zone? What is the big accomplishment that the president could bring back?
It's a very good question. Clearly, President Biden and the other NATO leaders are going to discuss some additional things that they want to do when they're in Belgium, and I expect that they will then announce those. Perhaps there's also a special announcement for when President Biden is here in Poland. You mentioned the MiGs. That's something that Ukraine has requested, which is that Poland provide MiGs, which Ukrainian pilots know how to fly because they're Russian-made and they have some of their own, to Ukraine. So far, the U.S. has not agreed to help make that happen, and the U.S. has suggested that Ukraine doesn't yet need those. But keep in mind, Ukraine is still contesting the skies above Ukraine against Russian fighters, but the Russian Air Force is much larger, so expect they will eventually need those. That will definitely be a discussion privately between President President Duda and President Biden. It's not clear if there will be any announcement on that yet, though.
A lot riding on this trip. David Tafuri, thank you for taking time tonight. Great insight. All right, Jonathan?